This is the Bax Grant Sports Show. Hello once again, ladies and gentlemen. This is Baxter Colburn, your host. My co-host, Grant Coppersmith, is MIA at the moment, but he'll be joining us a little bit later. I have the distinct pleasure of having my good friend Aaron King in studio with us today, so he will be picking up the pieces and offering his expert analysis on some of the many topics we'll be talking about today. So, Aaron, thank you. Thank you for joining us today.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Well, anytime. Well, we have a busy show today, so we're going to kind of jump right into it. First thing we like to do at the beginning of every show is just kind of look around the sports world and see what's what and who's who and all that fun stuff. So, one of the big things, Aaron, that came out yesterday was the new college football playoff. 4 new teams, well, not necessarily new, 3 of the same teams, 1 new team coming out. You've got Oregon, Mississippi State, Florida State, and Auburn, 1 through 4 respectively. What is your take on the 4 teams in the current college football playoff?
Well, I mean, right now I think it's a pretty good mixture. Obviously, you have the main undefeated team still left in there, and I think they did a good job of sticking the right teams in there right now as the top 4. I think Oregon's earned their right to be in the top 4, and as along with Auburn. So I think you have your one-loss teams who've really earned their spot though, because they were tough losses, and they've proven to be the top 4 teams in my opinion.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. Is a team like Oregon underrated this year, or are they right where they belong?
I believe Oregon's right where they belong right now at the number 4 seed. I don't think that they've done enough to prove themselves better than in Auburn or Florida State or Mississippi State. So I think at the 4 seed they're good. They have that 1 loss on the season, which was kind of a fluke almost, but they haven't had that dominant win over a ranked team that some of the other opponents have.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. I mean, Florida State is a team that, even without Jameis Winston, is still really dangerous. They've got a lot of firepower and really can hurt you at any instant. But it's nice not seeing them at number 1, honestly. I've never been a huge FSU fan. All the issues that Winston has gone through already this year, it's kind of nice, at least from an outsider looking in, to see him getting what he deserves. He's been the player, the way that he's acted is not. He shouldn't be in the spotlight the way he is. I don't know what your opinion is on him.
Oh yeah, I agree with you 100% that this is college ball, and these guys really are trying to be role models for the younger students, and I think it's good that they're taking that step back, because I don't think they've earned that right yet.
Yep, I have to agree with you on that. A few different teams though that are on the outside looking in at the moment. You've got Alabama at number 5, TCU number 6, Kansas State at 7, Michigan State at 8, Arizona State at 9, and Notre Dame at 10. All of those teams are 7-1 right now. Of the teams not in the top 4 right now, do you see any of them break in the top 4, or is the Mississippi State, Florida State, Auburn, Oregon grouping, you think, where we're going to end up the rest of the year?
Honestly, I don't think that this is going to be the way that it ends up at the end of the year. I like Oregon, and I think that they deserve to be in the top 4, but something always happens at the end of the year for them. It's been that way for the past 3 or 4 years now, where something happens, the pressure gets to them, and I hope they prove me wrong this year. I hope they can maintain that spot, but quite honestly, based on their history, I don't think that they will.
Fair enough. Yeah. Personally, and I don't want to make this hate on FSU hour, but I would love it more than anything to see FSU fall out of the top 4. Whether or not that happens is yet to be seen. I'd like to see Notre Dame in there. I think Arizona State has worked really hard this year. Even a smaller program like Kansas State, to see them sneak in, I think would really ruffle the feathers of all the college football experts that think they know everything so well. It would be nice to see a team like Florida State fall out of the top 4 and, I guess, get what they deserve in terms of all the issues that have been surrounding that team this year. But moving away from college football, the really big news that has happened over the last 24 hours is that coming from the NFL, Adrian Peterson of the Minnesota Vikings, you want to say he's a free man, but at the same time, he still has community service he's got to serve. He still has a lot of different things. He pleaded no contest in the child abuse case. So he's going to have to pay a fine of $4,000, which is pocket change, basically, for someone of his financial standing. And then he has to serve 80 hours of community service, and then he'll be placed on probation. So it's almost saying like he's getting a slap on the wrist. Do you think the NFL got it right?
Well, I think that they did get it right, just because I think his punishment's going to come out of the outside the court with his public image, which is how an athlete's able to make their money outside of it. There's now this stigma on him of being that the abuser, where the fans have shown, at least with the domestic abuse and everything in that regards, that they'll alienate people really fast. And I think he's going to have to work really hard to prove that he's now on the up and up, and that he's someone that people can still cheer for.
Yeah. Do you think that the Vikings are going to keep him though? Realistically, I know the Viking players have come out and they said we'll welcome him back with open arms. We'd love to have him back on the team. Are they saying that because he is a game-changing running back that was really the only reason the franchise has had any success at all the last 5 years, or are they saying it because they truly believe he is a good person?
I think that they're saying it because he truly is a good person. Because if you look back at the Ray Rice incident, the Ravens cut him loose, no questions asked about it at that point. Obviously, Ray Rice isn't an Adrian Peterson, but there has to be something about that person in order to keep him on. Because if you alienate all of your fans, then it doesn't matter how good of a person he is. So there has to be something about him that makes them think that like the fans can get behind him still.
Okay. Well, honestly, I can see where you're coming from, but I think right now with Minnesota being 4-5, they're more concerned about revamping their team. They want to get to the playoffs. They have a young rookie quarterback, Teddy Bridgewater, who's had a really good season. Yeah, he's been injured for a game or two, but he's got such a fantastic upside out of all the rookie quarterbacks that we've seen this year. Derek Carr struggling at Oakland, Johnny Manziel warming the bench in Cleveland, which nobody thought was going to happen. Blake Bortles has been suffering tremendously down in Jacksonville, but he's still done a decent job. But honestly, any quarterback, regardless, I think you can even. This might be a bit of a stretch, but even looking at a guy like Peyton Manning, if he was the starting quarterback for the Jacksonville Jaguars, I think the team would still struggle. Manning's a great player, but Manning has also had a great supporting cast around him anywhere he's gone. So Teddy Bridgewater, he's got some weapons, but having a guy like Adrian Peterson in the backfield would help him. So I think right now Minnesota is more focused on getting through this season and trying to pounce on the division that is run by the Lions right now, which is kind of weird to say, the fact that the Detroit Lions have a better record than the Green Bay Packers or the Chicago Bears. And it was pointed out to me yesterday that the Chicago Bears are in sole possession of last place in the NFC North, which is funny to say because going into the season, a team like Chicago has so many weapons, is so dangerous, and it's surprising to see them. But is it Jay Cutler being Jay Cutler, or what do you think?
As far as the Bears, I don't even think that it's just Cutler being Cutler. I think there's some serious team chemistry that's just not there right now. And I think that with that lack of chemistry in the locker room between the players openly in disagreements with each other, I think that it really shows on the field that they don't trust each other as much. I mean, he's got outstanding weapons both in the backfield and as wide receivers, yet somehow it's not all clicking. And I tell you that it doesn't really matter who your quarterback is at that point. If they don't have the chemistry, it's not going to work.
Exactly. Yeah, I have to agree with you. And you can make as many Jay Cutler jokes as you want to, but any quarterback, like you said, would be able to thrive in an offense of that nature when you've got guys like Brandon Marshall, Alshon Jeffrey, Martellus Bennett, and then you've got a guy like Matt Forte sitting behind you in the backfield. That's a dual threat, catching the ball and running the ball as well. But the Bears have been disappointing this year, and I don't know if you saw this or not, but last week or 2 weeks ago, Brian Urlacher, the former all-time great Bears linebacker, came out and said that Jay Cutler is paid like an elite quarterback, but he doesn't play like one. And I think that that's a fair assumption. Jay Cutler got a huge contract extension last season, kind of jumped on the Tony Romo and Aaron Rodgers bandwagon. They all were getting big contracts, and Jay Cutler probably whined and said, well, how come they're getting paid so much money? So he got his contract. And he started off the season looking like like an elite quarterback. He had fantastic games early in the season, but then Jay Cutler is Jay Cutler, and he is throwing interceptions, and he's cost his team games. Not everything is his fault, but Jay Cutler has been consistently known for not being consistent. If that makes sense. It might be a double negative. Either way, Jay Cutler, the Bears, last place on the NFC North. The Detroit Lions, though, first in the NFC North. Are you buying it, or have they just been really lucky?
As of right now, I'm not buying the Detroit Lions. I want to because I know they have the talent on both offensive and defensively, but I can't buy it yet. There's something about them that it goes down to the discipline where obviously they have their new head coach who is doing a fantastic job over there, not taking anything away from them. But I think that the next stretch of games that they have coming up is really going to test them. And after the next 4 or 5 weeks, if they're still in that number one position, I'm going to tell you they've earned it. Up till this point, I don't think they really have yet.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you in that sense. You look at the last 2 games against the Falcons and the Saints; those have both been games that they've won by 1 point at the last second, both weeks. And from everything you've heard from around the league, they didn't really deserve it at that point as well. The 2 losses they have this season at Carolina, they lost 24-7 in week 2. And they lost at home against Buffalo against Jim Schwartz, their old coach. He was carried off the field, even though it was planned after that. But still, to lose to your former coach is never good. But every game, you look down the line here, the least amount of points they've scored this season, and every game has been 17 points. They're averaging middle of the road 20s. In their first game against the Giants, they exploded for 35 points. But the Giants are not the same Super Bowl winning Giants as a few years ago. But the biggest thing for the Lions so far has been their defense. They're ranked 5th in pass defense. They're only allowing 216 yards a game. And then you look at their run defense, 2nd in the league, only allowing 74 yards, which is very impressive and a bit ironic because if you look on the offensive side, they're the 31st worst team in the NFL for rushing. Only the Green Bay Packers are worse in that sense. And in terms of run defense, but on the running offense, Lions are averaging about 80 yards a game, which you played the game, as a defense, you played offense and defensive side of the ball. On offense, that's like, well, we're not really doing much, but on the defensive side, you're like, oh, good, we're making plays. So is it Reggie Bush? Is it Joique Bell? What's the problem with the Lions right now in their offensive production?
Right now with their offensive production, I think it comes down to a lack of fluidity. They're doing the two running back approach, and I don't think that either running back's getting the flow of the game. I don't think either of them's had that chance yet. So it's weird because Bush has had the injuries throughout the year. So obviously his numbers are going to be down for that reason. He is such an explosive. He's their back who they want to catch the ball. And then they have Bell, who's their 3rd down back. He's a bit of more of their wild card where he could go off at any point. I think other teams have had a good job of containing them, and it's really shown this year. Plus, Stafford has more weapons at receiver now, so it's easier to throw the ball for them. So when their running game's struggling, why wouldn't they just automatically go to the passing game that's been working for them? Just a quick point, though. I think it shows really something about their defense, though, how their offensive run game's so slow, so they haven't been able to control the time of possession like you'd expect from a top-tier defense like that. So I think it really shows a good amount of their defensive run stop ability.
Yeah, you look at the stat numbers really quick for Joique Bell and Reggie Bush, and you mentioned that Bush has been back and forth with injuries this year, so these numbers are only been through a few games that he's been able to participate in, though. But Joique Bell, 98 carries, 313 total yards. He's averaging 3.2 yards a carry. He's only got 3 touchdowns. He's fumbled twice, which is not a good thing to have. Reggie Bush, only 49 carries, 171 yards, averaging 3.5 yards a carry. Not terrible, but not really that impressive either. He's only had 1 run of 20 yards or more, and he's only got 1 touchdown on the season as well. So you're right, though. The Lions, they're having some issues. We'll see. We'll see what they can do down the stretch. So we're going to step out real quick and take a break. When we come back, Grant Coppersmith is in the studio. He has arrived. So we'll be chatting about some fun stuff that we got coming up. A little bit of controversy that unfortunately that I caused. But it's always fun to cause some controversy. So you're listening to the Bax Grant Sports Show, and we'll be right back.
chicks feel the flow. Big black train coming round the bend. Go on, kinfolk, tell your mom and them. Chugga like a, chugga like a, chugga like a. Ooh, the big black neck coming through to you. Boy, you done fell and bumped your head. Uh-huh, that's what they said. And I'm big and black, clickety-clack, and I make the train jump the track like that.
I play chicken with the train, play chicken with the train, train. You know that I play chicken with the train, play chicken with the train, train.
Welcome back to the Bax and Grant Sports Show. I am your host, Baxter Colburn. Grant Coppersmith, welcome.
Yeah, nice to be back. Sorry, it took me a little bit to get back from my lab.
It's understandable. The ever-pleasing, easy on the eyes Aaron King was in studio with us, so it was nice to have a man in your absence taking over for you. So, but you're here, but now we've got three of us here, so I invited Aaron on the show today to kind of hang out and offer a third opinion about some of these things going on. But something I want to talk about right now, and I don't usually like to talk about myself too much, as you know, but for those of you that don't know, I am a sports journalist and a sports broadcaster as well. I currently have an internship with ESPN Milwaukee and also write for a few different publications online for fansided.com and for sidelines.com as well. But I wrote an article before the summer started about the current quarterback Mount Rushmore in the NFL. And my four quarterbacks going into the 2014 season were Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, and Drew Brees. And I stood by that, and I thought that those four quarterbacks were going to have breakout seasons, that they were going to continue to do well. I mean, even you look back at the numbers that these guys had in 2013, Peyton Manning, we know that he had a mind-blowing season. You know, he threw for 5,477 yards and 55 touchdowns, and he finished the year with a 115.1 QBR rating, which is insane. You know, you look at Tom Brady, 4,300 yards, 25 touchdowns, and 87.3 QBR rating, but he was basically throwing to, practice squad guys the entire season. Aaron Rodgers didn't play the whole season. Obviously, he was out injured. He threw for 2,500 yards, 17 touchdowns, and still posted a 104.9 quarterback rating. And then you also look at Drew Brees, 5,100 yards, 39 touchdowns, and a 104.7 quarterback rating. So those four guys really stepped it up. But then I decided to really make some people mad. And about a month ago, I wrote an article on sidelines.com. You can look at it, sidelinesapp.com. I went on the record and said that Aaron Rodgers is no longer an elite quarterback. And the amount of hell that I have been under, even just scrolling through the article, all the comments, everything that happened, it certainly brought a lot of people to the attention of Aaron Rodgers, and somebody that will remain unnamed has continued to bring hell upon me since that point, and ever since that, I think I wrote it after the Jets game. Yes, I wrote it after the Jets game, so they were only a few games in, but still, Aaron Rodgers had played the Seahawks and he'd played the Jets, two teams that have pretty good defenses, not anything to really write home about. The Seahawks, obviously better than the Jets, but the Jets have, not horrible, even though they're 1-7, still a decent group of guys, to really play defense. But I still stand by this because I don't think Aaron Rodgers has played a top-tier defense this season to match the numbers that he's put up this year. I think that you look at the guys they've played. They have played the Lions. They've played the Bears. They played the Vikings. They have played the Seahawks, obviously. They played the Saints, the Panthers, the Dolphins, and the Saints. The 4-game stretch where Rodgers went off against the Bears, the Vikings, the Dolphins, and the Panthers, people were singing his praises, saying he's one of the best quarterbacks to ever play, this, that, and the other. And this one person, like I said, that will remain unnamed because he doesn't deserve the credit for continuing to raise the issue, is he kept coming to me saying, well, how you think he's an elite quarterback now? Like, look at the numbers he's putting up. And I'm like, have you seen the players that the Bears, the Vikings, well, the Bears and the Vikings especially have on their roster? Look at those defenses, even against the Lions as well. The Lions were signing guys off the street 48 hours before that Packer game. And Aaron Rodgers was not able to do anything that day. And I get it. The defense actually played well that game, and the Lions defense outscored the Packers offense in that game, which is that's just embarrassing in and of itself. But I still stand by this, even after watching Rodgers play the Saints game, where the Saints have a decent defense. The Panthers defense and the Dolphins defense, both very good teams, and I understand Rodgers led the last second, game-winning throw to Andrew Corliss in the end zone for a winning touchdown, but the Dolphins gave him hell the entire game. The Panthers defense, the Panthers defense played well. That was Cam Newton that didn't play well in that game, but I still stand by that. Aaron Rodgers is not an elite quarterback anymore in the NFL. I think he's a great quarterback. I think he will be regarded long-term, like his whole career, as an elite quarterback in the NFL, like a Steve Young, like a Joe Montana, John Elway, those guys. But right now in the league, I don't think he is anymore. What do you guys think?
All right. Well, I'm going to agree with you and disagree with you. I agree with you that this season, at least, I agree with you 100% because he has not done as well as he did when they won the Super Bowl, did when the season they won 15-1. He has not done that well at all, especially against the Lions when they probably, with the defense that they brought, would have had the lowest ranked defense that the season as the NFL has seen in a long time because they had so many key injuries and they were only able to score 7 points the entire game. Like, I was watching that game and it was completely ridiculous. And it wasn't just his offensive weapons that weren't performing. And the defense did show up that game. He was missing throws. I remember specifically he missed a wide open, well, not incredibly wide open, but a pass he has easily made before to Jordy Nelson in the end zone, and that cost them.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with you. He's just not performing as well as he has past season. But when you say that he is no longer an elite quarterback, I don't know if that is a long term. I think he might just be having a rough patch in the season. He could just be having a bad season. But I don't think that he is done forever, that he's just done in the league, that he's no longer going to be able to perform. And yeah, he's a great quarterback, and he's gonna pick it up. He's gonna pick up his game. Was highly revered throughout the past couple seasons, and I think he'll pick up steam and he'll get back onto it. But I do agree with you, as right now he is not performing well.
Well, I think the big thing to remember with Aaron Rodgers is he's always been one of the most efficient quarterbacks. He's not known for being the risk taker, for throwing a lot of interceptions in a season, but in that regard, he also doesn't take the risks, so he doesn't put up as big of numbers. And I think it shows heavily now when he's not making those passes that he's used to making, those more higher percentage ones, or even when he threads the needle in there, those passes are getting dropped and his numbers are going down. So he's not as efficient, or it doesn't look like it, but really he doesn't throw it as much as the other quarterbacks. He doesn't get as many attempts. So it's hard to say that he's not an elite quarterback now. I think he is just having that off season where things aren't going his way yet, but I'd still consider him to be an elite quarterback as far as the style of quarterback that he plays, because he plays that very, very efficient style of quarterback where he's not going to throw the classic Brett Favre mantra over from one half of the field to the other, complete crossbody, and make that dazzling play or the interception to lose it. He's not going to take that chance.
Those are only your Madden plays anyway nowadays. But I get what you're saying now, and it's difficult because I've been a lifelong Green Bay Packers fan. I want that to be on the record. I'm not saying this as a angry Bears fan or as an angry whatever fan, but I have not been impressed with how he's played this season, and I didn't, and the way I've tried to explain this to people as well is that I didn't mean it in the fact that he's a terrible quarterback that he should drop out of the league. I didn't mean it in that. I just think that after 2011, after 2012, after 2011, 2012, he hit his pinnacle, and now he's going to have a few great years, not elite years, and then he's going to have a few good years, and then he's going to probably be done. I think he's got probably another 6 to 8 years maybe left in the league, depending on how his shoulder holds up and collarbone and all of that nature. But I don't think that if you're sitting, around a round table with, your friends saying, okay, well, let's name the 4 best quarterbacks in the NFL right now. I think that if you're going to look at it from how much does Aaron Rodgers' receivers make him an elite quarterback to how much are the throws that he's making make him an elite quarterback. To get the ball to his receivers is more impressive than sometimes the move, shake, whatever that the receivers put on to get by the defender. You got something, Grant?
Yeah, I did. I went and looked up the definition of elite. A select part of a group that is superior to the rest in terms of ability or qualities. And I'm actually going to help with your argument here. Using that
A long part of your career, allowing 20 sacks at this point in the season. Thrown for 2,000 yards, yet he's got 12 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He's been sacked 27 times. And then you look at a team that's doing well, or 2 teams that are doing well in the Lions and the Steelers, and their quarterbacks are 2 and 3, and the most sacks allowed as well. 24 sacks on Stafford and 23 sacks on Roethlisberger. And Roethlisberger's not exactly the smallest kid on the playground. He is a big guy that's really, really hard to take down. So it's surprising that both the Lions and the Steelers have as good a record as they do, but their quarterbacks are ending up on their butt, as many times as they are throughout the game. But now it's time to move on to one of my favorite parts of the show. We are going to move into a segment I like to call Grant's Rant. So the way that Grant's rant works is that Grant gets 30 seconds when I tell him to go to rant about anything he wants in the sports world. Have you found a topic?
I do.
Okay.
I do have a topic.
All right. It was a bit of a scary moment the other day when you're like, oh yeah, I got one. Okay. So, all right. Well, Grant, 30 seconds when I say go. Are you ready?
Yep.
Get set. Go.
All right, so the Minnesota Vikings are opening up a new stadium that's supposed to start off the 2016 season and will host the Super Bowl in 2018. Scott Walker made a stop and signed one of the steel beams with his signature. Snuck in, go Pack go. Vikings went back in and now erased it. And I think that's a little ridiculous. I thought it was funny. When I read the article, I was like, come on. But I mean, I understand you don't want a rival having insignia or so on the field.
Time is up. All right. Well, That has been Grant's rant. Interesting move by Scott Walker. I had heard rumors about that, but it's interesting to see that. So we're going to take a break. When we come back, we will have some fantasy football stuff for you. Talk about some of the leaders and talk about some stardom, sit-em picks, and then we will conclude with our final thoughts. So you are listening to the Bax and Grant Sports Show.
It might seem crazy what I'm about to say. Sunshine, she's here. You can take a break. I'm a hot air balloon that could go to space. With the air, like I don't care, baby, by the way. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel.
Welcome back to the Bax and Grant Sports Show. Baxter Colburn alongside Grant Coppersmith, joined in studio today by our good friend Aaron King. Aaron, thank you again for being here today and picking up the pieces as Grant was a little late, but it's okay. We won't hold him against. We won't hold it against him. It's only week 1 of the show. We won't fire him yet, but we know we have a good replacement. If you make me mad enough, and Aaron. So,
All right.
something to think about in the future. Anyway, last 10-ish minutes of the show here. We want to talk a little fantasy football. Obviously, it's a big thing. Aaron and I, we play a lot. Grant, not so much, but Grant is still pretty knowledgeable in his football knowledge. I mean, I feel it's a little redundant. But so we want to talk about some of the games this week and some of the players that are pretty solid locks in that regards, and other players that you should probably avoid down the stretch as well. But first game this coming week, the Thursday night game, the Cleveland Browns and the Cincinnati Bengals. First of all, I guess my real question to both of you is, do you even bother owning any Browns players this season?
Even though they've been putting together a pretty good season, and I'm cheering for them down the stretch because I like an underdog. They don't have any really outstandish players that will really be good for you on your fantasy team. The team as an overall has been they've been surpassing expectations, but they don't have any outstanding players, so I wouldn't really even bother starting anybody from the team.
What about you, King? Is Brian Hoyer good enough to lock up a consistent fantasy starter, or is he like I need a quarterback for 1 week, my star QB's on the bench?
I'd agree with Grant on this one. They don't have enough of an individual player. Where last year they had Cribbs, and obviously he did fantastic. But you look at this year, and maybe if you're in a 16-man league, you're starting quarterbacks out, you might pick up Hoyer based on a weak matchup. But I think this week against the Bengals, Hoyer's going to struggle, and I think that offense struggles with it. So I don't see anyone as a viable option right now.
Yeah,
on that team.
I'd have to agree with you. According to our friends over at numberfire.com, they have all the latest and greatest projections for any of the fantasy leagues, whether you play NFL, hockey, MLB, or NBA fantasy. They've got a lot of great stuff over there. Brian Hoyer, the Bengals are ranked 20th overall in defense, but Hoyer, like you said, though, he's only projected 11.73 points this week. So the Bengals defense, I wouldn't risk it. I think that's a safe move. They don't have Josh Gordon this year. He's been the team has been still doing okay without his presence, but I think that this would have been an entirely different Browns team had he been on the roster this year, obviously. But you lose an elite receiver like Gordon, obviously your team's going to suffer. So moving on, though, to the next slate of games. Chiefs, Bills. I don't know if you guys do or not. I have Sammy Watkins. on my fantasy team. Sammy Watkins, hailing from Fort Myers, Florida, just 40 minutes north of where I grew up. Never got to see him play, but he was always in the papers for just being an incredible wide receiver. So it's really cool to see him on the main stage that is the NFL and thriving in Buffalo as well. Against the Chiefs defense, do you start Sammy Watkins?
I'm a little biased on this one. I picked Watkins as my my offensive rookie of the year going into the season. That's how good I thought he was going to do, and ultimately how bad I thought the rookie quarterbacks were going to do.
That's a fair assumption, though.
But yeah, I say you do start him. I think that the Kansas City secondary isn't what it was last year, and I think Watkins has proven to be a good enough receiver that you start him no matter what matchup he is up against.
But has he moved from, like you said, you just used the phrase good enough. Is he good, or is he just a roster filler? Like, can you throw him at flex because you don't trust him per se as one of your two receivers, or do you like, you know what, I'm going to start Watkins because I know I can trust him?
I think you can start him. Yeah, I think you can start him. It might be a little bit of a risk to do that because he is newer in the league, but Kansas City's secondary, it's definitely not as good as it once was. So I think actually going off of that, you can rely on him to do well in this game. But for other matchups, I don't necessarily agree that you could always start him. I think you need to watch and see what matchups he's going up against.
Sammy Watkins right now currently ranked 15th at the wide receiver position, 50th overall in all of fantasy going into week 10. The rest of the year, though, they're projecting that he's going to finish the year as the 19th best wide receiver and the 71st best player overall. So that kind of speaks, to him as a player about how, he's a rookie. You can only expect so much out of him. I mean, the Packers drafted Devontae Adams. He's played relatively well. He's got a few touchdowns to his name, but he hasn't done anything insane. Watkins is basically the main guy out in Buffalo. Kyle Orton throwing the ball around. E.J. Manuel when he was healthy and not on the bench. So moving on from that, the Dolphins-Lions game, a very interesting matchup on all accounts. I know that earlier in the week, Grant picked the Dolphins to win that game. I picked the Lions to win that game, just because I would obviously as an NFC North. That's the problem with things like this is that as an NFC North Packer fan, having an unbiased opinion is difficult, and I'm sure you all can back me up on that.
Right.
But I think this game against the Dolphins is a good test for the Lions, and I want to. If the Lions can win against the Dolphins, they will have a little bit more of my respect, and I like them beating Miami in Detroit. It's a different atmosphere.
I feel like if they do win that game, and it's going to be a close game. It's going to depend on who shows up. But if the Lions win that game, they're going to establish that they're not there by accident. They're there because they pushed hard, even though through the toughest defensive injuries, losing their key players, they will prove that they can be with the best of them and earn a spot in the playoffs. So I think this is a really pivotal game for them against a extremely solid Dolphins defense. So if they can show up offensively, I think they can win the game and possibly even with this game establish himself a playoff spot in the middle of the season.
Fair enough. Well, my next question, because we only have about 6 minutes left here in the show, do you even bother having any Jacksonville Jaguar players on your roster?
Nope. That's all I need.
I mean, in past years I've had Cecil Shorts. He's produced for me. But this year I'd have to go with no as well. There's no one.
Yeah, no, I definitely would have to agree with that. Denard Robinson a little bit. He had, I think, a week or two where he produced some decent numbers, but you're right, though. A player of his stature not playing well. Just looking through the number fire top 5 players that are projected to produce the most points this coming week. Peyton Manning, no surprise. He's projected to have 25 points this week. We've got Matt Ryan projected 22 points, Aaron Rodgers 21 points, Drew Brees 21, Ben Roethlisberger 21 as well. Carson Palmer. Now, I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent, but I had a nice conversation with my good friend Megan yesterday. She's a football writer for Vavel.com. She's going to join us on a later show as well, but she and I both agreed, or her and I both agreed, or whatever the proper English is on that Carson Palmer is a weird quarterback because he's not an elite quarterback. He's not a bad quarterback.
No.
But what is he? Is he a good quarterback? Is he a great quarterback? Because you look at it, you've got your platinum level quarterbacks, which are Tom Brady, Peyton Manning.
We won't talk about Aaron Rodgers.
That last one is a toss-up. You've got your gold level quarterbacks, which are Phillip Rivers, Matt Ryan when he wants to show up to the party. And then you have to look at Carson Palmer and say, does he belong here? Ben Roethlisberger, I'd call him a gold level quarterback this year as well. But does Carson Palmer make it to the gold party, or is he stuck in between the silver and the gold party, stuck in the elevator somewhere?
Yeah, Carson Palmer, he is weird. I would say that with a specific team that can, or just even the season if he's playing well, because he's unreliable in my opinion. You can't always count on him to show up. So I think with a specific team and a specific season, you could count him as a gold level quarterback. I think it'd be a season to season deal with him. And I think this season you could count him as a gold level quarterback, but past seasons, especially with Cincinnati and Oakland, have not all been well with him.
I think as far as Carson Palmer is concerned, he's never, to me, been that gold level quarterback because he just doesn't have the abilities to be. I think that his type of quarterback isn't game changing. He's not the guy who you want where if it's like 4th and goal and less than and time's running out, you don't want him as your quarterback. I think that he's the guy where if you have the supporting cast around him, he's in a thriving position to manage the game. More of the lines of like an Alex Smith is down in Kansas City. I think that's the role that he plays with Arizona.
Yeah, he definitely wouldn't be a quarterback you want going down the stretch playing tough playoff games. He wouldn't be one that definitely you wouldn't want to start in the Super Bowl. You would want, like we were saying, Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning has been able to perform, been able to show up, has won it before. And Carson Palmer, he's been in the league for a long time, and he hasn't been able to do much of anything, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you have a valid point. Carson Palmer, 34 years young or old. He's been injury riddled his entire career. I liked him when he was at Cincinnati. I thought he had a good spell while he was at Cincinnati. Then they brought in Andy Dalton, and the transition went accordingly. His 2 years in Oakland never should have happened. Honestly, he should have gone somewhere else that he could have been more useful at. But he's only played in 5 games this season for the Cardinals due to injuries and other assorted things happening. But while his stats this year, 1,300 yards, 11 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions, 1 fumble, QB rating of 99.3. Not terrible for only playing 5 games. If we were only 5 games into the season, maybe. But then you look at guys like Ben Roethlisberger, who have thrown 12 touchdowns in 2 games, then you're like, wow, Carson Palmer hasn't done anything. How is his team only have 1 loss this season?
Well, and if you look at Carson Palmer, he's been playing for 12 years. If you've been playing for 12 years, you have a certain set of experience. I don't think that you can be an elite quarterback and be it for 12 seasons and perform like he has.
I definitely have to agree with you on that. So I think the group consensus is that we'd call him probably a silver level, I think, this season.
Yeah, I'd go with silver.
Okay.
I'd say maybe a gold for this season, but overall, as a career, maybe even a bronze.
Interesting. Okay. Well, that's the group consensus on our end, is that Carson Palmer, a silver level, gold to bronze to... He's a wood quarterback. I don't know. Carson Palmer, though, an interesting quarterback. So... Aaron King, thank you so much for stopping by today.
Yeah,
Grant, thanks for showing up. It's always a pleasure. We appreciate everything you guys do listening to us. This is the Bax Grant Sports Show. I'm Baxter Colburn, Grant Coppersmith, Aaron King. Until next time, we will see you back again on Friday at 2 o'clock. Have a good rest of your day, everyone.